Hello, fellow targeted individual. The relationship between cost stalking, which is typically based on systematic harassment and ideology, a grievance, a group objective, and the terms local harassment, clandestine, and covert is complex, but it's interconnected. And here's a breakdown of it, fellow TIs. Cost stalking is by definition an activity which is systematic. It implies an organized, persistent pattern of harassment and surveillance directed at a target or group of targets, driven by a shared belief or objective, which could be political, it could be based on extremism, a vendetta, a hate group, an ideology, a perceived betrayal, black ops, the utilization of veteran groups, community partners. So, local harassment as a primary tactic typically includes some fundamental components which are seen by TIs all across the United States. Local harassment is often the most visible and tangible manifestation of cost stalking, and this includes repeated unwanted phone calls, messages showing up, vandalism of property, spreading of rumors locally, intimidation tactics near the target's house, orchestrated public shaming or mobbing within a community. This could be a few people from a postal clerk, a union, a neighborhood watch group, a citizens court program, a municipality sharing resources with the sheriff and saying we're going to gang up on this person in certain areas and make our presence known. This could be strictly done by a clandestine contractor into black ops or diversity and inclusion. The list is long. So their purpose is to inflict psychological distress. They want to isolate the target. They want to force them to leave the community after they've already left another state after years of harassment. So they want to inflict psychological distress. They want to isolate the target. They want to force them to leave. They want to show their power. And the pervasiveness of these groups can cause the target to feel threatened and to feel that they're in a situation that they cannot escape, because typically all targets go to police. This activity, which is systematic based on cost stalking, heavily relies on local harassment as the core tactic for applying direct pressure. So they're trying to put pressure on you. Now, the term clandestine means kept secret or done secretly, especially to conceal an illicit or improper purpose. Now, when we look at the history of these different groups which are involved in targeting, what we see is that they've done stuff like this to other people, along with other partners. So, organizers of these campaigns often communicate and plan secretly these acts through encrypted apps, closed forums, coded language to avoid detection by authorities or the target. They simply seek to gather information on the target's schedules, routine, associations, so that way they can interfere in the target's life, not to stop terrorism, not to stop crime, not to promote national security, but for the sole purpose of making their presence known to intimidate the target. So these people are able to avoid any legal consequences, typically because of their status of being a veteran, a mutual aid partner, having an interlocal agreement. And these activities at times have been linked to false flags and deception, creating false narratives and disguising the true source of the harassment. Systematic cost stalking inherently involves significant clandestine activity to organize, to gather intelligence, and to protect the perpetrators while maximizing impact on the target's life. So, the perpetrators may utilize fake accounts. They may spread disinformation. They gather intel for the sole purpose of targeting your life, not stopping crime or terrorism. These flying monkeys, which go around recruiting and manipulating the target, seek to orchestrate an act. If somebody is going out of their way to antagonize you and to make their presence known, it's because they're seeking a reaction. So These psychological operations are based on rumors, gaslighting tactics, and creating subtle environmental manipulations designed to destabilize the target without revealing the source. These covert tactics are frequently employed with these stalking groups, which receive at times faulty intelligence just based on lies. So that way you cannot enjoy your environment, where you walk at, where you eat, when you go to a lake. They may utilize select members of public works or parks and recreation every blue moon. They may utilize pretty women to convince cops, hey, this guy's bad, can you help? Local harassment is the primary overt manifestation of the systematic campaign, applying direct pressure on the target within their environment. And these activities require organization, surveillance. They monitor your online activities. So these people which are working to destroy your life, fellow TIs, aren't seeking to help you, but to harm you. At the Russian hoax scandal, which impacted President Trump, what you see is that people in positions of power and trust abused their role. They created a hoax. Kind of like some people which have been abusing FISA courts, the Patriot Act. See, these things were created to monitor terrorists, not to monitor Americans and say, okay, you don't support terrorism and starvation, you're a terrorist. Now, I don't belong to any of these pro-Palestinian groups. I don't go to protests or marches. I don't belong to any groups. If I go on Facebook and I sign up for a prayer group, that doesn't mean like, hey, I'm a devout member. I might just share a link. That doesn't mean I have those people's same symptoms. I just talk about enhanced surveillance. My thing is saving up money, looking at other countries, because I'm seeing a lot of corruption. When I start seeing starvation, mass murder being supported here, then it's time to start looking at other places. When I start seeing that contractors can harass people for years and police have to redact reports and lie, well, that means I can't trust you. You're not trustworthy. You're not honest. You don't support the Constitution, so I got to go somewhere else. Those are my only objectives. I'm not out here harming or harassing people. But I have documented in every state, fellow TIs, Israelis, active duty army. I can even show you what they've done, what base they work at, how much they get paid. I have FBI agents on file, confirmed CIA agents, retired CIA agents, Israelis, radical feminists, LGBT, transgender, diversity and inclusion groups, defense contractors, 8A business vendors, people from university offices of community engagement, school teachers tied to Kwanzas from other states and counties, people wearing green uniforms and gold star badges in every state, secretly supporting these acts and even profiting. The corruption is unreal. Everything revolving around domestic terrorism goes back to people, fellow TIs, within our system. If people are doing things that are terroristic in our country, most likely we have harmed that person's people. That's why I don't go around messing with people in other nations. Because when they react to the mass murder and starvation, the first thing we're going to say is, they're a terrorist. One of the strategies I've noted in every single state is that the perpetrators will typically drive white cars, black SUVs, and wear black suits. They may deal with the FBI, military, people that look British or Israeli, or that are clearly leaning towards the diversity and inclusion crowd. So what they may do to you is utilize kids, not to entrap you. They know you're not a pedophile or a drug dealer. See, the reason why these people sometimes bring kids is because these people want you to feel uncomfortable in your environment. So they may utilize tactics similar to like the Explorers program in LA and in different cities. There are a lot of people which are marginalized. They're taking their courses online to excel, to get their degree in education. But since they're poor, or let's say they're marginalized, they're targeted, they're tied to maybe a fringe group, like targeted individuals and so on. Well, these people will try to say that you're a threat, and to exclude you from public spaces, they'll utilize social sanctioning tactics. So you could be at a law library with 100 tables, and they may just sit a kid right at the table with you and walk out the place and come back an hour later. They won't sit the kid in front of the librarian where there's a camera, but where you're at and there's nobody around. It's not to test you, fellow TIs. It's to make you feel uncomfortable in your environment. So that way the person's wondering, what's going on here? This is weird. And they want to leave. These tactics are even utilized when they are a peaceful protest. That way they can say, these people are dangerous. They're making our kids afraid. You may have noticed that these people may have cars which are untraceable, which are bringing these kids. I've documented this, and due to tracking devices, I have located them with pinpoint accuracy. Gang stalking, fellow TIs, is a clandestine activity based on slandering people and outsourcing. Anybody doing it, fellow TIs, in my opinion, is an active threat, because these activities have been confirmed to lead to mass shootings if they're done systematically. The enemy is trying to dehumanize you in a covert manner. And what freaks them out, fellow TIs, is that many targets are aware of who these people are, and that they're hiding behind different fronts, that they're abusing the law, and that they're doing something which is linked to false flags, mass shootings, and domestic terrorism. They are essentially our national security threat. If you relocate and you see they're accessing teachers, emergency management, police, sheriff's associations, cops, then you clearly see what's going on. You don't need to go to Department of State, Homeland Security, a state governor. You don't need to go to those people to understand who the threat is. You already know who the threat is. Now, what's really bizarre, fellow TIs, is that I have videos where I've been shot at in prior states. Even here in Florida, I have videos where I've been stalked and harassed, where I've documented these people accessing local police departments with false reports, where even they know the reports are false. So gang stalking, fellow TIs, is really nothing more than an activity based on demoralization or demoralization warfare, outsourcing, and what they want to do is they want to dehumanize you secretly until you react by outsourcing. Who would have thought in a million years, fellow TIs, that the national security threats, the homeland security threats, are the same scumbags, fellow TIs, which hide behind our flags as if they're our nation's first line of defense. Now, I'm sure that some things are going to change now that President Trump is in office, and now he's put patriots in these departments. But there are some groups, fellow TIs, which have earned so much money in contracts that even if they're cut off from these contracts, they can easily target somebody the rest of their life. They can be perceived as being a threat. My videos are jam-packed with people that are ex-army, LGBT, transgender, radical feminists, Israelis. And what's really interesting is when I look at my files, I always find people that go back to New York City that are Israeli. I always find people that have worked with the CIA or transgender people. The stuff involving, Obama's agenda, the diversity and inclusion, which caused our country to have a new generation of kids which are going to grow up sexually confused. Those targets eventually start going to city halls to speak as a constituent during a municipality meeting. They may go to members of Congress to speak as a constituent when there's bills on appropriations towards certain groups or topics based on public safety and homeland security. These are opportunities to share what you're experiencing. But one thing you will never experience is one member of Congress, one member of law enforcement, one member of our national security apparatus willing to talk to you. When you go to a different country, did you know that when you seek political asylum, they're going to be looking through the files. They're going to ask that government, what did you do to investigate? If anybody is following you around and not communicating and making their presence known, consider them to be a threat. Don't harm or harass people, but get their tag number and just walk away.